What if I were to state to you, as a simple fact, that your financial struggles are not the result of the economy, your station in life, or some stroke of ill fortune? What if it all comes down to a single, powerful belief that you hold regarding money, a belief you never consciously selected? I have found through my life's work that most men live as prisoners to financial beliefs they have inherited. They absorb them from their family and their circumstances, accepting them as an unalterable reality. This is the story of how one such man was a prisoner to that very kind of belief, until he made the decision to challenge it. What followed is a testament to a power that resides within every one of us. It is the power to change one's entire material reality simply by changing one single thought. Let us call this man James. To the outside world, James appeared quite ordinary. He held a respectable position, resided in a modest apartment, and followed a routine of impeccable regularity. But on the inside, James was living in a state of constant, quiet anxiety. The first sensation he felt each morning was a knot of fear in his stomach. Before his feet touched the floor, his mind was already racing with calculations. Has that check been honored? Can I afford to purchase gasoline? What shall I do if the rent is increased again? His reality was a prison constructed from beliefs he did not know he possessed. These were not thoughts he chose with intention. They were deep, unconscious assumptions, the programming of his subconscious mind that directed his life automatically. Beliefs such as money is a scarce commodity and difficult to acquire, or one must labor brutally merely to survive, and the most destructive of all, to want more money is a sign of greed, and men of wealth have likely acquired it through dishonest means. These beliefs were given to him, not chosen by him. He heard them in the weary sighs of his parents as they reckoned with bills at the kitchen table. He absorbed them from reports of economic downturns and from fretful conversations with his colleagues, all scrambling for the same meager rewards. His mind, which is designed above all else for self-preservation, accepted these fearful ideas as truth, because they were the prevailing beliefs of his environment. And so, James lived his life in accordance. He never requested a promotion, for deep down, he did not feel he was worthy of it. He felt a pang of guilt whenever he spent money on anything that was not an absolute necessity. That guilt was a symptom of his core belief that money was a limited resource to be guarded with fear, not a tool to be utilized for a richer, fuller life. He would observe others enjoying vacations or starting enterprises and feel a toxic mixture of envy and judgment. He would tell himself, they must be mired in debt, or they were merely lucky. This was his subconscious mind protecting him, justifying his own inaction by casting blame upon the outside world. James was a prisoner, yet he could not see the bars of his own cage. His prison was not forged from steel, it was forged from thoughts. He believed his financial condition was a reflection of the world, a result of his circumstances. It never once occurred to him that his financial condition was a direct reflection of his beliefs about the world. He was attempting to solve an internal problem with external methods, working longer hours, cutting trivial expenses, hoping for a stroke of luck. But this was akin to trying to alter one's reflection in a mirror without changing the object casting it. It was an exhausting and fruitless battle, and it was draining the very life from him. He was stuck, and the most terrifying part was, he did not even know why. For James, the great change did not arrive in the form of a winning lottery ticket or a sudden inheritance. It came from a book, an old copy of my work, Think and Grow Rich, which he discovered in a second-hand bookshop. He began to read, and one idea arrested his attention. It was a concept so simple, yet so profoundly contrary to everything he had ever been taught to believe. The idea was this: riches do not respond to wishes. They respond to definite plans, backed by definite desires, through constant persistence. He read the words again and again. For his entire life, he had operated as though wealth were like lightning, a random and arbitrary force that strikes a lucky few. It was something that happened to you. It was about being in the right place at the right time, or being born into favorable circumstances. His entire financial strategy, if one could call it that, was based on hope. Hope that his motor car would not fail him. Hope that his employer might one day take notice of him. But this single idea proposed a radically different universe. It suggested that the accumulation of wealth was not a game of chance, but a game of cause and effect, a law as reliable and as immutable as gravity itself. It suggested that riches do not respond to vague hopes. They respond to clarity, to purpose, and to a burning desire for a specific outcome. In that moment, James identified the master belief that had held him in bondage, the belief that I am a victim of my financial circumstances. This one belief was the taproot from which all his other limiting thoughts had grown. Because he saw himself as a victim, he believed money was scarce, opportunities were few, and he was powerless to change his lot. It was a perfect self-fulfilling prophecy. The new belief the book offered him was the key to his cell. I am the creator of my financial circumstances through the definiteness of my purpose. This was not mere positive thinking. It was a monumental shift in his perception of reality. It was the difference between being a passenger on a ship tossed about by a stormy sea and being the captain of that ship, setting a definite course for a specific harbor. The storm may still rage, but for the first time, he understood that he was the one at the helm. He realized the starting point of all achievement is not luck, but desire. A weak desire brings weak results, just as a small fire creates a small amount of heat. The choice was suddenly laid bare before him. He could continue to live by his old inherited belief and remain a prisoner of circumstance, forever hoping for a rescue that would never come. Or he could adopt this one new, powerful belief and observe what would happen. He resolved to conduct an experiment upon his own life. He chose to believe with every fiber of his being that he was no longer a victim. He was a creator. And that one decision was the first tremor of an earthquake that would shatter the foundations of his entire world. The moment James truly accepted this new belief, that he was the creator, not the victim, something extraordinary began to occur. The change was not visible on the outside, not at first. It took place deep within the architecture of his own mind. His brain, which for years had been conditioned for scarcity and fear, began to yield to his new commanding thoughts. By consciously choosing and repeating a new belief, he was actively reconditioning his subconscious mind to support wealth-oriented thinking. First, his thoughts changed. The anxious, looping question of, what if things go wrong, was slowly but surely replaced by a new, powerful question, what is it that I definitely want? This is the very essence of possessing a definite chief aim. Before, his mind was a sea of unfocused anxiety. Now it had a target. Instead of waking with dread, he began to wake with a sense of purpose. He ceased his obsession over what he did not want, debt, stress, and lack, and began to focus with laser-like precision on what he did want. Second, his imagination was awakened. I have written that if you do not see great riches in your imagination, you will never see them in your bank balance. For years, James's imagination had been a theater for failure, constantly playing scenes of him losing his position or ending up destitute. Now he consciously repurposed his imagination. He began to visualize himself already in possession of the wealth he desired. This was not idle daydreaming. It was a deliberate mental rehearsal. He would see in vivid detail his bank account with the exact sum he was aiming for. He would feel the sense of peace and freedom that came with it. By doing this, he was creating the feeling of wealth in his body before it had manifested in his external reality. His subconscious mind, which does not distinguish between a real and a vividly imagined experience, began to accept this new wealthy reality as fact. Third, his words changed. The language of a victim is filled with phrases like, "I cannot," "it is too difficult," and "I will try." James began to purge this language from his vocabulary. He ceased complaining about money. He stopped making self-deprecating jokes about being broke. Instead, he began to practice what I call autosuggestion, the programming of the subconscious mind through repeated affirmative statements. He wrote down his definite goal, the exact amount of money, the date by which he would have it, and what he intended to give in return. Twice a day, upon waking and before sleeping, he would read this statement aloud with emotion. At first it felt foolish, but he persisted, knowing that with every repetition he was driving this new belief deeper into his subconscious, overriding the old programs of lack. This internal cascade created a powerful alignment within him. Before, his conscious mind desired success, but his subconscious mind, from which the majority of our automatic behaviors originate, believed he was unworthy. Now, for the first time, his conscious desires and subconscious beliefs were pointed in the same direction. He was no longer at war with himself. This internal harmony was building an unshakable foundation of faith, and he was becoming the man who could achieve the goal long before the goal was actually achieved. An internal change that does not produce an external result is but a wish. The true alchemy occurred when James's newly reconditioned mind began to drive new actions. Because he now believed with absolute certainty that wealth responds to definiteness and action, his behavior radically shifted. This transformation is perfectly illustrated by the true story of Mr. Edwin C. Barnes, a man who became a living embodiment of my principles. Barnes was a young man with no money and little formal schooling, but he possessed a burning, all-consuming desire to become the business associate of the great inventor, Mr. Thomas Edison. This was not a vague wish. It was his definite chief aim. So he acted. He boarded a freight train to New Jersey and presented himself at Mr. Edison's laboratory, appearing as what Mr. Edison himself later described to me as an ordinary tramp. When he announced he had come to be Edison's business partner, the staff was amused, but Edison was not. He saw a look of determination in Barnes's eyes that told him this man was in earnest. Edison gave him a menial job sweeping floors. A man with a victim's mindset would have felt defeated, but Barnes's belief was of a different nature. He did not see a janitor's job. He saw an opportunity. He saw his foot in the door. He knew that by accepting the role, he could display his value, his work ethic, his positive mental attitude, where his intended partner could see it every single day. For months, nothing changed, but Barnes did not waver. His chance came when Edison perfected a new device, the Edison dictating machine, later called the Ediphone. Edison's own salesmen were unenthusiastic. They did not believe it could be sold easily. They saw a problem. Barnes, his mind conditioned to see opportunity, saw his opening. He went to Edison and declared he could sell the machine. Edison gave him the chance. Barnes sold it so successfully that Edison granted him an exclusive contract to distribute and market it across the nation. This contract made him a millionaire, and more importantly, it fulfilled his definite purpose. He became the business associate of Thomas A. Edison. Edwin C. Barnes literally thought himself into a partnership and a fortune. Inspired by this very story, James began taking his own definite actions. The old James would have waited for the perfect opportunity. The new James understood that action creates opportunity. He worked in mid-level marketing, and for years he had merely performed his duties. Now he began to act as a partner in the business. He spent his evenings engaged in study, acquiring specialized knowledge about a niche market his company was ignoring. Then, instead of waiting to be asked, he developed a complete plan to target this new demographic, outlining the costs and the potential return on investment. The old James would have been terrified to present such a plan. The new James, operating from a place of definite purpose, walked into his superior's office with a confident, well-researched proposal. His boss, taken aback by his initiative, granted him a small budget to test the idea. The test was an enormous success. Within 6 months, that new client base became the company's most profitable new stream of revenue. This did not happen by chance. It happened because James changed his belief, which changed his thoughts, which led him to acquire specialized knowledge, organize it into a plan, and execute it with persistence. The world did not change for him. He changed his actions, and the world was forced to respond. The most profound part of this man's transformation was something he never anticipated. He believed his goal was merely about acquiring money, but he discovered that changing one great belief about wealth creates a cascade of well-being that ripples through every area of one's life. First, his relationships improved dramatically. The old James was often irritable and distant, his mind consumed by financial worry. Now, operating from a mindset of purpose, his entire energy shifted. He became confident, optimistic, and present. People are naturally drawn to this type of positive mental attitude. His friendships deepened because he was a source of influence and encouragement, not a drain of negative energy. Second, his health was transformed. For years, James had suffered from the physical symptoms of chronic stress, poor sleep, tension headaches, and digestive ailments. This is a known effect of financial anxiety, which can keep the body in a state of alarm. As he replaced his belief in scarcity with a belief in his own creative power, this state of alarm began to subside. He began to sleep soundly. The headaches became a rarity. His mind, now calm and focused, allowed his body to return to its natural state of health. Third, his career accelerated. The new James understood the power of specialized knowledge. He stopped attempting to be proficient at 10 things and focused on becoming exceptional at one, the niche market he had identified. He read every book and took every course on the subject. He made himself the go-to authority within his company, thus making himself indispensable. Finally, and most importantly, his identity shifted. James used to see himself as a man who was bad with money. By changing his belief and proving it to himself through definite action, he rewrote his own identity. He was no longer James, the man who struggles. He became James, the man who creates value. He learned that money is simply a tool, a reflection of the value one provides to the world. The real wealth was the confidence, the resilience, and the self-respect he had built along the way. He had proven to himself that whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. The money was but a byproduct of the man he had become. So how does one go from being a prisoner like the old James to a creator like the new James? It is not a mystery. It is a formula. The formula is simple, but its application is not easy. It requires discipline and repetition, for you are physically reconditioning the pathways of your subconscious mind. Here is the 5-step blueprint which this man used. First, write it down. A vague goal will produce vague results. You must have absolute clarity. Take a piece of paper and write down the answers to these 4 questions with painstaking specificity. What is the exact amount of money you desire? Not more money, a definite figure. $100,000. A definite aim gives your subconscious mind a clear target upon which to work. What do you intend to give in return for this money? There is no such reality as something for nothing. What service or value will you provide? I will become the top salesperson in my division. I will build an application that helps people learn a new skill. Be specific. What is the definite date by which you will possess this money? Again, be specific. By December 31st, 2027. This turns your dream into a deadline. Create a definite plan for acquiring it. It does not have to be a perfect plan, but you must have a plan. What are the first steps? What specialized knowledge must you acquire? With whom must you form an alliance? A dream without a plan is merely a wish. Second, speak it aloud. This is the principle of autosuggestion. Your goal is to program your subconscious mind. Read your written statement aloud twice every day, once after rising in the morning and once before retiring at night. As you read it, feel the emotion. See, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of the money. Your subconscious mind is moved by faith backed by emotion, not by empty words. Third, act on it immediately. This is the step at which most people fail. They write it down, they may even say it, but they do not act. They wait until they feel ready. You must begin at once, whether you feel ready or not. Action is the physical expression of faith. What is the very first small step you can take today? Read 1 chapter of a book? Make 1 telephone call? Take that first step. Great momentum is built through small, consistent actions. Fourth, guard your mind. Your new belief is a tiny seedling. Your old beliefs and the negative suggestions of those around you are weeds. It is your duty to be the guardian of your own mind. Make a conscious decision to eliminate influences that contradict your new belief. This might mean spending less time with cynical people. It may mean turning off news reports if they fill you with fear. When the old thought, "I cannot afford this," arises, consciously replace it with, "How can I create the means to afford this?" Fifth, build your support system. Willpower alone is a fickle ally. You cannot rely on it. You must construct an environment that makes success the path of least resistance. Systemize your time. Schedule definite hours for learning and for your money-making activities. If it is not on your schedule, it is not real. Systemize your environment. Keep your written goal where you can see it every day. Place books on your shelf that reinforce your new beliefs. Systemize your associations. This is the application of what I call the mastermind principle. Surround yourself with at least 1 or 2 people who support your definite purpose. This creates a synergistic energy that is far more powerful than your individual effort alone. This is a daily discipline. You perform it every single day without fail until the belief is so deeply installed that it becomes your automatic default reality. Now I wish to ask you a question. As you have been listening, what is the one limiting belief about money that you know has been holding you in check? Is it that you lack the education, that you do not deserve wealth, that the pursuit of money is somehow evil? Take a moment to identify it. Now, in the comments below, I want you to perform 2 actions. First, write down that one limiting belief. To acknowledge it is the first step in robbing it of its power. Second, write down the new, empowering belief you will choose to replace it with. Let us make this a public declaration. By sharing it, you are taking the first step of definite action. Go ahead and do it right now. In the final analysis, this is what it all comes down to. The difference between a life of quiet anxiety and a life of abundance is not your job, your parentage, or the state of the economy. It is a choice about what you are willing to believe. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your beliefs. You can choose to believe you are a product of your circumstances, and the world will gladly provide you with evidence to prove you right. Or you can choose to believe you are the creator of your circumstances, and the world will be forced to rearrange itself around your new conviction. This law is not a secret hidden away for a chosen few. It is a universal principle available to every single person, but it only works for those who believe it works and act as though it is true. It only delivers for those who have the persistence to see it through when doubt and difficulty arise, and they will arise. Obstacles are not a sign that you are on the wrong path. They are the price of admission for transformation. So the question is not whether this philosophy will work for you. The question is, will you work for it? What is the one belief you must change starting today? Is it the belief that you are not worthy of wealth? Change it. Believe you are worthy of every good thing you are willing to create through service. Is it the belief that opportunity is scarce? Change it. Believe that you are surrounded by infinite opportunity, and your job is to open your mind to see it. Is it the belief that you are defined by your past? Change it. Believe that you are defined by the definiteness of your purpose and the actions you take today. The moment you make that choice, that one single powerful choice, everything changes. Not all at once, but in that instant, you bend the entire trajectory of your life in a new direction. You cease being a prisoner of your history and start being the architect of your destiny. You are the lawmaker in your own life. Now go and write the law.